In this video, I'm going to look at the process of solving quadratic equations by completing the square. But I'm not going to do any problems in this one. You have to understand what's going on first. And I wanted somewhat color so you can see what's going on. First off, remember that finding the x-intercepts means setting y equal to 0 and solving for the x values. So this question is really asking you to solve 4x squared minus 2x minus 5 equals 0. So I've got the original problem. This says to move the loose number over to the other side. Another way to look at this is get x's to one side and constant to the other. I have to have plain little o x squared. That is a necessary. So since I've got a 4x squared, all of my terms were divided by 4. This was reduced. Now here it goes. Take half of the coefficient. Don't forget the sign, but take half of the coefficient. Half of the coefficient here, a negative 1/2 times 1/2 would give me a negative 1/4. And then I square it. Now how I do this is a little bit different from this one, but I wanted you to see what was going on. When we take half of that, that actually is telling me what needs to go right here. When I square it, that 1/16, whatever I do to one side, I also have to do it to the other. This is why it's called completing the square, because this trinomial that I've got between my fingers is a perfect square trinomial. If you FOIL this quantity right here, you'd end up with this trinomial. Now we're almost done because this is what we did in the very last part. I'm going to take square root of both sides. Okay? And now solving for x, I'm going to add 1/4. So this would be my answer. Always remember the plus or minus. I've got two values. Okay? Two values. I'd prefer it be left like this, but this is just meaning you do have two values for x. Now this answer can be written in rounded form as this. If you do it in the calculator, you've got to use parentheses. Actually, I prefer it to look like this. 1 plus or minus square root of 21 over 4. When I do it in my calculator, I'm going to do parentheses around that. So parentheses 1 plus square root of 21. Close that parentheses, divide it by 4. And that's where that this answer right here came from. But now the only difference between the two are the signs. So if you do second enter, cursor back in, to be right above the plus and change it to a negative, press enter. And that's where that one comes from. But I prefer it like that. I've got a common denominator, so I can go ahead and add that. You will need the rounded form for real life answers to word problems and for graphing. Warning, in most cases you should assume that the answer should be in exact form, complete with all square roots. When you complete the square, make sure that you are careful with the sign on the x term when you multiply by 1/2. If you lose that sign, you can get the wrong answer in the end because you'll forget what goes inside the parentheses. Also, don't be sloppy. Make sure to put the plus minus sign and draw the square root sign. If you get in the habit of being sloppy, you'll only hurt yourself. Now, I've got one more example. Now this one's a little bit easier than this. It says do the same procedure as above in exactly the same order. Study tip, always work these problems in exactly the same way will help you remember the steps when you're taking your test. So I've got my original. I move my constant to the other side. I leave room here. I've got a reason. Because what I do, let me see, now instead of multiplying by 1/2 if I had a fraction, divide by 2. So you see, I put that 3 right here. But I put the 9 right here. I sort of save a step. I'll show you what I'm talking about in just a bit. So take square root of both sides. Remember the plus or minus. Subtract the 3, so x equals negative 3 plus or minus 4. I've got 2, so negative 3 plus 4 will give me my plus 1. Negative 3 minus 4 will give me my negative 7. If you're not consistent with remembering to put your plus minus in as soon as you square root both sides, then this is an example of the type of exercise where you'll get yourself in trouble. You'll write your answer as x equals negative 3 plus 4 equals 1. I have no idea how they got x equals negative 7 because you won't have the square root symbol reminding you that you meant to put the plus or minus in. That is, if you're sloppy, these easier problems will embarrass you. So that's it for this video. I'm going to be working a couple of problems in the next one. Thank you.